Hi, I'm Maullius, and today we're going to take a look at a time-saving hack. So one of the main issues I have when I go to write something new down, if I have a great idea and I want to go record it before I forget what's going through my head, I'll go to FL Studio, I'll open it up, and by the time I find a sample that I don't hate and route things to the mixer the way I want them so that I can work with them, I forget where I was, I lose the groove. And even if I don't forget, I waste a ton of time redoing the same steps every time I open a new project. So FL Studio has some built-in templates, which if you go here, open from template, it has a number of these, but honestly, they're either so minimal that there's nothing really useful on it, or some of these ones, like these advanced ones, they tried to have, they put so much into it that I end up spending more time removing all the formatting and everything they did than I would have actually spent just creating it from scratch. So today I'm going to make something very simple, but just get some basic instruments and basic routing that I typically do in every single project so that when I have an idea and I want to get it down, I can get to it more quickly than I normally would. So we will start here in the channel rack. So first I'm going to delete all of these because I don't like any of these. I think there's a way to delete all these, but we'll just do this. Delete. Okay. And then I'll put in some basic drums that I use almost every time. So one of my favorites for kick drums, we'll start there, is a plugin called Kick 2 by Sonic Academy. It's a great kick synthesizer. You can make just about anything you want. I'll make something really basic. I typically use this for like a sub kick. Sometimes I'll use it for as the only kick, but I like to mix like an electronic sub kick from this and then mix in a like a live kick of some sort that kind of gives things a more live sound but still has that energy and power of an electronic kick. So first things first, want it to be sub, so I want some rumble. G1 is fine. So we'll go about here, and then we'll add another maybe a G2 somewhere up around here, and there's a G. We'll come down here. So that kind of has a very 808-y sound. I don't like how long this takes here, so let's bring this over. I don't want that really long kind of trailing tail on it that the 808 has. I want it a little cleaner and tighter. So we'll go here. I'm not sure why G1 here is 49 Hertz and 48 over there, but we'll just deal with it. Okay. Other thing is I'm going to remove a little bit of this click because again I'm going to be adding a live sampled kick, which is going to give me what I want there. Bring this down a little here, just tighten it up. But that's kind of more what I'm looking for, and then just a little bit, and then bring that in. A little more meat. This section here kind of really gives it the power, and then over here when you start getting out to this, which is about 300 milliseconds. Well, actually it's less than that. Sorry, this is about 150 milliseconds. Around here is where you start to get the real subbiness and the tonality of it. So again, if we go over here to the pitch, you'll see we're already down to G1 by the time we've got to 84 milliseconds. Maybe we'll bring that out a little bit to about 100. That should work for now. Nothing crazy here, just something that gives me a little bit of a tail. Maybe we'll kill that. A little more here. That'll work. Good enough. Okay. So the next thing I want is we'll actually open up the browser. We'll grab just a basic kick out of here. We don't want that. Packs, drums, kicks. There's one. It's FPC. I like that one. That has like a nice. Get rid of this. I like that it has a very live sound to it. I like that kind of effect. Then after that, let's get a basic snare. Something that kind of is universal and works. There's one called, I think, the loose snare. like this one, so we'll use that. And then we'll maybe get a couple hats, a couple rims. We'll start with rims maybe. Let's see if I got those down here. Which one did I like? I think there's a 707 rims. Oh, there it is. That's a nice sound. And then hats, we'll grab like a... That's good, just something real tight. And then an open hat, that'll be just fine for that. So that should do for drums. By the way, if you just highlight those all and hit Control L, it'll bring them over here to your mixer. And then what I'll do is I'll leave about 5 more spots for other drums that I may add. And then all of those we'll put in a bus. So I'll rename this. Actually, we're going to change that up a little bit. We're going to leave the 2 kicks here. I always mix them into another kick channel. So these 2 will go to, selected this track only. So these 2 will go to this, which is the kick bus, and then this will go there. Now the other thing I like to do is we'll go down here, grab a high number one like 100, dock to left, and then this one we'll call pre-master. This way I can put effects on before the master, or sometimes I like to add reference tracks and have them bypass this so that I can switch quickly between them. Okay, so that's good. And then if I go over here, I've got my 2 kicks, and then the next thing would be the bass line. So we'll call this bass, sub bass, and then there'll be just a regular bass. And then all of these actually, so the kick bus and then the sub, and then these will go into their bus. So this will be rename sub bass. And then, okay, I renamed them all. So we'll just rename this sub, and this will be bass, and this will be bass bus. Okay. Colors, I like to color these, so I usually make my kick. I'll just change color on all of these. Change color, use like a red, typically is what I use. We'll use like a dark red for those, and then the sub and the bass, I typically use blue for all this. Change color, blue, something like that. And then this will be the kick and bass. So this will dock to, we'll just leave it here for now. So then what will happen is these 3 will all be linked, track routing to this track only, and then this guy over here will come to this bus, this one will be to this bus as well. So now I've got a single bus for these, and these will not go to the master, they'll go to the pre-master. Volume. Okay, so that's all set up now, so I can have each of those. Then these ones will be, let's see, we leave spots for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so all the way out to here. This will be my kind of percussion. I could probably add a shaker to that, but I can do that later. So I'll make these a lighter red, which I typically use for percussion and other drums. And then here, we'll actually make this last one here, rename, we'll just call it drums. So these will all go to here, track routing to this track only. And then this will go again to the pre-master. Reset that. Okay. So now what I need is for sub bass, I need to put something in there. So I typically for the sub just use this. Oh, we're missing one here too. This should be 11. Yes, that's good. Okay. So then we'll add a citrus for the sub bass, and what I'd like to do for this is just go to default, and that's good. Just bring this down there, maybe even go down one more, a couple octaves. So just a sine wave, nothing fancy, clean sub bass. So we'll rename this, rename sub Add another one. For this one, we'll use like serum or something. Just leave that in there as a placeholder for the base. That's fine. So this will be 4, and this will be 5. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the color on these. Change color to blue. Change color to blue. Okay, and then for these guys, these will be the dark red. I don't need that open, but change color, dark red. What? Change color, dark red. Same with this. Change color, dark red. And then these guys will all be this one. Change color, change color, change color. Okay. So that's a basic setup there. Now a couple of the things I'll typically use. These are all going to get a parametric EQ. For the sub kick, well, we'll just leave this. Typically I will put a high pass filter on this just to cut out some of anything that happens way down here below 20. I like to just cut it out here before it goes into my bus. 24 or 25, that's usually good. That's about where I put it. Okay, so I'll put that, and then we'll actually open this up, and I'll be using this as a preset and just copy it over to a bunch of other ones. So save preset as, throw it on this one. For this one, it's going to be, usually we'll be cutting somewhere more in this range, and the order on this is going to be like a gentle 8 or a gentle 2 actually. Maybe just use a 2. That's fine. I like that to kind of blend in as the bass goes down, so that's fine. Kick bus, we'll just leave that for now. Well, one thing we're actually going to put on here is we're always going to have a fruity limiter, just to compress those. Now on the bass, it's going to be a similar thing here. So again, we're going to get this one and save preset as over here on the sub, and that's good. And then, well, for this, yeah, there's really no need to filter any of the highs out because it's a sine wave, so there's not going to be anything there. But we'll grab this one and drag that over to bass. Looks cool. And then the kick bus, grab that and put this over on there. Okay. We'll go, while I'm at it, I'll go over to the pre-master chain. I'm always going to have an EQ on that, so we'll put that there. Just leave it as is, and at the end, I'm going to have a limiter, so we'll throw a limiter on that. Looks good. Okay, so we'll clean these up a little bit, put a separator there, put a separator here, and so that gets us set up with approximately the drums. One thing I will do, again, on all of these, okay, this is the wrong color. That needs to be dark blue. And what I sometimes like to do is actually make the buses an even different, darker, deeper colors. They kind of stand out so I can pick them up easily. So this will get a separator. So this does not go there, that goes to here. And this will get an EQ, and it will get a limiter, which we'll just put right here. Okay. So that's good. Now another thing I'm almost always going to put here is I'm always going to put some distortion on this because I love distortion. So for this, there's a Sound Toys Decapitator is one of my favorite distortion units. So we'll load that up and put that there. So it's ready to go. Okay. And then usually with that, afterwards you definitely need an EQ. So I'll do a before EQ, and then we'll just throw another one in here. That'll kind of clean up whatever artifacts from the distortion. So now back to this. Continue putting the filters on here. That should be fine. And then we'll throw that same. We'll just put it on a bunch of these. Save preset as. Most of these are going to get pretty much the same filter on all of them, just to clean up anything that's not really wanted. Kind of useless information. And then here on the drum bus, for sure we're going to have EQ, and then for sure we're going to have a limiter. Okay. Now another thing that I typically use is somewhere I need a basic I almost always use a simple kick or other sound as a sidechain controller, and that's usually not. I prefer to use a separate controller for my sidechaining as opposed to going directly to the kick. It just gives you more control. You can turn things on and off easily that way. So I'll grab like a kick, kicks like that's real clean. That'll work very easily. Let's actually take this and we'll go out here again. We'll put this way out somewhere. 101's fine. And then we'll rename this sidechain control, and we'll dock this to the right, dock to the right. Okay. Now another thing I almost always do is I always have one delay and two reverbs on everything. So we'll go about we'll go a little further out, even about 45. So we'll rename this one delay, and then we'll have a short verb, short reverb, and then a long reverb. And then all of these will dock to the right. I wonder if I can do all three at once. I don't think so, but we'll try. Oh, that works. Okay, cool. We'll make these. I usually make these a really bright color, so it's super easy to see because it kind of makes sense with them. So I'll use like that, and then the delay. Use a different one, but something similar. And this is kind of boring, so I'll give it just like a gray. Something like that. Okay. So then these will again all route back to this guy here. Oh, sorry, that doesn't work. You go here and then track routing, route selected to this track only. Okay, so these are all over there. Perfect. Looks good. Okay, so we're getting there. The next element after I've got my drums is I almost always have so this would be like a shaker, another rim, another hat, whatever. And then after that, almost always have, let's call it effects. So this would be like cymbals, white noise, all that kind of stuff. So we'll just add, so we'll make this a darker color just to make it stand out as the bus. And then here we'll have about 5 maybe even, yeah, 5 should be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make these another color for effects. We'll go with something like yellow would be fine. And then here this will be an effects bus, so we'll make this, just go darker with it. I don't like that. That'll work. So this will be rename sound effects. Sound effects, so these will all go to here, and then this guy just goes over here. So just reset that. No, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Alright, so we'll put a separator here. Now this will get us to sounds like lead guitars, other lead sounds, vocals, anything else. So those will live out here. So for now, I'm just, those ones vary drastically from song to song. Sometimes I'll use vocals, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll have a lead guitar or lead synths or whatever. So I'm not going to worry too much about setting them all out. I'm just going to give it 10 tracks. We'll change the color on those to, for leads, I typically use like green or something. It's very common. That'll be fine. Change color on this one to a darker green, like that one. Okay. So now I can put another separator. And this guy routes to this. And all of these track route to this. Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. Just to clean a few of these up again, I think each one of these I'm going to want a filter on. So we'll just throw one of these on each. Then I'll definitely want a filter on the bus, as well as a limiter, for the limiter. That's good enough. other effects I can always add as needed. Oh, on the delay and the reverb. So here we're going to use Fruity Delay 3 is good enough for that. Usually I'll use like a it'll be fine. Typical tempo sync it. Something quick, 1/8, and then that's all fine. Turn the dry completely off. Pass, good. And then after that, I always have an EQ, and this typically looks like this: a high pass and a low pass. Just to clear up mud, anything not too high and too low. And I'll put that exact same EQ on both of my reverbs. For a short reverb, I like to use, there's a plugin by Soundtoys called Little Plate. Little Plate, it's a nice plate reverb. It's very clean sounding light reverb. Probably go to like 2 wet, low cut, that's fine. Modulation on. So that's good. And I actually will put, well, I'll leave that, that's fine. And then here, one of my favorites, all-time favorites, is Valhalla Vintage Verb. And in here, typically, random space I use a lot for more chill tracks. It has a very kind of spacey feel to it. But this Bright Hall is one of my favorites. It's a very bright, 4 seconds will be fine. Pre-delay up around 40 should be fine. Again, mix 100%. Has a great sound. I love that reverb. Okay, and then here, so we need to link up this 808 kick. Okay, that's there. So we'll get this color correct. Change color. Use this one. Okay, so we've got our drums in. I've got my sub. So now we're getting somewhere. The master has nothing on it, as it typically wouldn't. However, I will put an analyzer on it. Analyzer, which is useful. And then there's also, I'm going to add a monitoring plugin on the master chain. Ulean loudness meter. It's great. It kind of gives you your loudness. So that's useful. This will be all the way at the end. And this actually we'll put down here too in case we need anything above it. Okay. So there's a basic setup. So now when I open something, I'll have some kick drums. I can get that quickly. I have something in place for my sub bass for another type of bass. One thing on this bass going to channel 5, almost always with that, it's going to have, it's going to be filtered like this, and then it's typically also going to have distortion on it. However, I don't really have a specific one I always use. This is one that is pretty universal. Something like, that's a pretty good, let's see if I just grab a note. So that's this guy. That'll work. It sounds a little crazy, but actually I might replace that with something that I use more often. That'll be fine. And then more plugins. Let's do just throw another EQ after that to tame it. Something like that. So again, I haven't really loaded much in the way of instruments for these because it'll be totally different. It could be so here, but this at least makes it easy to know where to put them. So we're going to call this instruments. Help if I could spell. Instruments, add a separator. And then one other thing that, so this here will cover things like cymbals, reverse cymbals, impact sounds, anything else like that. This will be all synths, vocals, lead guitars, everything like that, drums, bass. So this should be enough for now. Again, it's not super in-depth, and I'll probably continue to modify it as I go, but it at least covers the basics, things that I do every single time I set up a new track. So it'll save me that, and I have some instruments and effects loaded in so I can very quickly put together a basic whatever it is that I want. One other thing actually that would be useful would be I'll add a couple patterns. So I typically will have, let's rename this kick. I typically will start with a kick, and then pattern 2, we'll call this kick live, and then we'll add another one for snare and rim, and then we'll have an open hat, or sorry, closed hat first usually. Closed hat, and then we have another one which I'm just gonna call, I'll call percussion, because I'm always gonna have some percussion in there. Then we'll need a sub bass, so we'll just call it sub. Another one that's called bass. Those are kind of the ones that I always use. Again, the sidechain control, which goes with that. And then I'll go set things up a little bit in the playlist, since those always fall into a pretty standard pattern as well. So first what we'll do is I'll take, this will be, we'll call this kick and bass. So this will be any kind of automation, those kinds of things. Then here we'll have, this will just be the kick, sub kick, and then rename kick. I'll actually go in and clean these up to be the same. Kick, we'll rename that sub kick, and then we'll just call that kick. It's a little easier to understand. Okay. Kick, and then we've got, we'll just go basically this exact same route here, and we'll just copy it right on down. So it'll be a sub bass. So rename sub, and then rename sub bass, or sorry, bass. So these will all be grouped together like that. So that way I can believe there's a way to also have these all expand and shrink, but that's okay for now. So this will be red. I'll actually just match it up here. Again, that's dark blue. So I'll make that this dark blue. And this will be red, red, blue, 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 and so on and so forth. Okay, so I've now cleaned this up, and I'm pretty happy with where it is. So I have each of my major groups, kick, bass, and then I'll actually rename that to be bus. And all my percussion and drums, sound effects, instruments, delays, reverbs, basic plugins in each of these where needed, so that I can very quickly get things loaded in. On the playlist, I've put each of those corresponding instruments into their channels here, or tracks I guess they'd be called, and color-coded them all to match so that I can very quickly and easily know where to place things and know that everything's going to be linked up and ready to go. For instruments, I just added a shaker that I like there, and basic loops, patterns have each been created for these. So at this point, I'm happy with this. This will work. I think this will save me a lot of time moving forward. Again, I'll save this and attach it so that you can find the link and download this to use it yourself if you'd like. If you don't have some of the plugins that I have, no problem. Just delete them off of the chain and replace them with whatever you'd like. But maybe this will be a template, and if you like, it'll save you some time. Once you've downloaded it and modified it to the point that you're happy with it, to save it as a template so you can actually open from that template, you want to go to File, and if you go to Save As and you look at the types, you'll notice there's no option for template. Like, you don't save it in that way. You actually just save it as a project, but it's where you save it that makes the difference. So, and it should be, if you installed per standard FL Studio request, it'll be at C program files 86, and then image line FL Studio 20 data templates. So I made a folder here. I'm going to save it as that. Yes, replace, save, and then you're good to go. So if I make a new from template, and I go to other, let's see, Maullius template, it's right there. So now I can select here, and if I open a new project, it will open exactly in this template and be ready to go. There it is. Thanks for watching, as always, and see you around.